Molo Sanbonani, hello, how's it? Shalom. Welcome to another evening with Big Daddy Liberty. That's right, it is late nights with Big Daddy Liberty. I hope you guys are having a fantastic Sunday evening. I hope the weekend, period, was a good one. Nonetheless, you had a bit of rest and you got a chance to catch up with family and friends. Guys, welcome to it. Welcome to it. Sanbonani, hello. It's going to be a relatively brief show, about 45 minutes, because I'm handing it over completely to you. I want to have a conversation straight off the bat with you, the people who make the BDL brand exactly what it is. You guys who support the show and who energize me, as I like to say, quite a lot. So welcome to it, guys. I'm just going to give it a moment for people to join us. I'm sure, some people are migrating from other shows. Ronaldo's show, for example, I don't know if that's still on. Shout out to Ronaldo Ghost. So I'm going to give it a moment, maybe as I also do a little bit of housekeeping and admin. Guys, I hope you have some warm beverages. I've got some coffee up in here. Because it is this vrek goat. Is that the saying? Vrek goat? Yeah. As julle Afrikaans is, sal julle my correct. I couldn't even think of the word correct in Afrikaans. But yeah, man, I've got a heater blaring away behind me because it is, guys, Johannesburg is brutal tonight. If you're just joining us on the show, welcome to it. It's Late Nights with Big Daddy Liberty. I really want to take this opportunity also to say thank you to every single one of you who are donating to the show via Patreon. I don't think you guys understand just how important this is becoming now, insofar as what will now become a life lived on the road over the next 6 months, initially, until I reassess. 6 months on the road, you're wondering, Big Daddy, what are you doing on the road? Well, I am essentially beginning that second phase, if you will, of the Liberty, the Big Daddy Liberty mission, if you will, which is advocating for the ideas of liberty in the communities that need to hear them. We talk a lot in South Africa about the various bad ideas that dominate our political landscape, which are inherently center left all the way to extreme left. As I've always argued on the show, there is no political diversity in South Africa. There really isn't. There's the illusion of it, of course, because we see all these colors, yellow, red, blue, and, you name it. But in real terms, there is no real political diversity in the politics. And I've always held on the show that is the major reason why the vast majority, or there is a massive, shall I call it minority, of people, 12 million plus voters in this country who are eligible to vote, but do not vote. And that tells you a very big story. And let me put that 12 million into context. The ANC in the last national election only got about 10 million votes. So if those 12 million people who are eligible to vote but don't vote, for whatever reason, decided to actually show up on an election day and vote, you would literally change the country politically in one election. So it's critically important that we understand why those individuals are not voting. And I put it to you, the viewer, that a lot of them just basically look at our politics and they go, yuck, I don't want to be, a part of any of this because none of it represents me. And a lot of it also is just people saying, I don't see anything that represents me here. I don't see anybody who talks to my values. I don't see anybody who does the groundwork, the hard work of convincing me of their ideas. And that's what I've always said to you guys, at least on the show, that the Big Daddy Liberty brand is all about ideas. I am in a battle of ideas. And it is a society, in terms of what I call the battle of ideas theory, it is a society like ours that is at the point of crisis, at the cusp of crisis. It is he who injects the greatest volume of ideas into that society that is at a point of crisis, who will sway that society one way or the other. So that is the battle of ideas theory. It's the idea that it is he who injects the greatest volume of ideas into that society who will sway that society one way or the other. And don't fool yourself. The left in this country, the broad left in this country, whether they call themselves trendy lefties, or not that they call themselves, that I call them trendy lefties, or social justice warriors, to the most vehement socialists and communists, they understand to a large extent, Thanks, that coffee came back with a vengeance. The left in this country, they understand broadly the broad strokes of the battle of ideas. That is why you see the likes of your Julius Malemas, who are repetitive in their rhetoric, of land expropriation without compensation, nationalize the mines, blah, 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 blah. That's why you see the ANC that is repetitive in their messaging of the NHI, expropriation without compensation, essentially following the EFF, prescribed assets, all these asinine ideas which are broadly on the left and broadly speak to a society where government and politicians are the most important entity and not individuals and not families. And I therefore put it to you that my role, my work, what I seek to achieve, both in the air war, the various shows that I produce on a weekly basis, and the mission I have of getting onto local radio stations across the country. Remember, that's the one imperative that I'm following. It's the idea that, yes, I will continue putting out the show, whether it's Blacks Only, I love that name, because I'm purposely being cheeky by calling it Blacks Only, but we'll get to that. Whether it's the show Blacks Only, the Big Daddy Liberty Show, or Late Nights with BDL, or the vlogs that I do, there'll be lots of that quality content coming out as part of the air war, my two-pronged strategy for winning the battle of ideas. So there'll be lots of that air war content coming out. And in addition to the air war, it's the mission I have. Why I'm traveling around the country is to get onto various local radio stations so that people who don't have access to data to watch the show religiously or whatever the case may be, can at least hear me on their local radio station so that I can also target the very people that I want to target. Your rural dwelling individual, your township dwelling individual, guys who don't necessarily consume their news through means like these. If I can do that, then the air war is 100% solid. And thank you very much to the radio stations, that are beginning to sign on to syndicating the Big Daddy Liberty Show onto their channels. More of that once I have stuff in black and white. So that's the air war, remember. And then, of course, the other is the ground war, which is exactly why, as I said in the beginning, I'm selling all of my goodies. I'm sure you can see my television, I think, in the back. All of the stuff, I'm selling it to raise capital in order to hit the road and live on the road, so to speak, for the next 6 months, at least initially. And hopefully as funds grow, I can continue. What am I doing on the road? Exactly that, which is to wage the battle of ideas, get into the informal settlements, get into rural South Africa, speak to people, build that coalition of South Africans. As I said to you in the last episode, where you take South Africans by the hand and they know you face to face and they say, yeah, this guy came, he spoke to us, he convinced us about the efficacy and the value of building a liberty-leaning society. That's what you need to do. You cannot do it by just thinking that, you'll reach people through the mainstream media. No, that's one way. And it's often how people fail for those who advocate for liberty ideas. We're so busy sitting in our ivory towers that we forget that your very mission, at least mine, is to go out and speak to people, reach people. As I said, in a previous show, I want to be able to say at the end of this that, guys, I want South Africans across the country, in communities all over this country, to know Big Daddy almost at a personal, face-to-face level, to say this guy came to our community, he respected us enough to come to our community, whether we live in an informal settlement or a township, wherever, but he came here and he spoke to us. He shared his vision of a property-owning, prosperous, free, non-racial society. He shared the ideas that get us to that point, the idea that you can literally break down the power and the resources of the state and literally hand that out to the poor South Africans so that empowerment in this country takes the form of assisting you because you're poor, not because you're black. Let me repeat that. Oh my goodness, someone give me an amen. Empowerment in this country, as one of the ideas I'll be advocating for, takes the form of assisting poor people based on socioeconomic need and not race. And you can do that. There are ways in which you can do that. And these are the ideas that I'll be taking into the communities, actual tangible ideas. If you want to hear some of them, I do have a video on my channel where I did a talk at the University of Stellenbosch to some postgraduate students in politics around liberty ideas. And I broke it down in terms of what they look like in policy terms. In actual policy terms, what does a liberty-leaning society look like when it comes to issue of safety and security, healthcare, education? Like, what does it mean to have a limited government? Am I saying that we're leaving people to their own devices so that people starve on the streets? No, of course not. But again, if you take the moment, you watch that video, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. And you'll get a strong sense of what I'll be saying in communities across the country, what I'll be trying to advocate for, and building a coalition of South Africans, black and white, who will literally stand behind ideas and then put pressure on politicians for them to change. Remember, it's not about going to politicians and it's not about also getting the right politicians into power. What you really want is a society that makes it politically profitable for even a bad politician to do the right thing. Woo-hoo! Let me repeat that. I'm on fire tonight. What I want to do is build a society of South Africans, black and white, who put the political pressure on politicians. In other words, for even the bad politicians, for it to be politically profitable for them to do the right thing. That's the mission, guys. That's what you're trying to do. And that's why the battle of ideas is super, super, super important. That's why ideas matter. Yeah, I'm going to leave it there because I can feel myself warming up. I can feel it. I can feel myself firing up. But I've learned to discipline myself because often at the end of these evening shows, I'm so fired up that I then can't sleep. So I want people to understand this, right? Guys, I'm sorry, I know I'm waffling away. I will get to the questions now. I said this show is completely up to you. Questions, comments, we'll have a conversation. Okay, all right. With that being said, let me just quickly shout out everybody who is therefore supporting and donating on Patreon. Guys, you are the life engine. You are on the Liberty bus. I literally am able to do what I do because of you, Wena. So shout out to you, Debbie Fox. I see you grow with the $5 support. Michelle Saunders, I see you. Thank you very much. Sorry, Dick Swartz. Baie dankie vir die ondersteuning. En ek moet sê dankie na Marie de Klerk. Baie dankie na Marie de Klerk vir die $50. Wow, thank you so much for that support. I don't know how I missed that, but thank you so much for that. Thank you so much to you, Joe. I see the $10. Debbie Fox, thank you very much for the $5. I'll see you. Michelle Saunders, thank you. Don't worry, I know I totally understand, but you're still on the Liberty bus. And I think that's everybody. In terms of the latest, sorry. Excuse me, there are some more. Thank you to you, Linda Jane Simone. Ngiyabonga Kulu, thank you so much for the $5. Wow, Molemo Moseu, Galeboa Ntate for the $25 support. Galeboa Hahulu Ntate. Wow, guys, this is humbling. And again, I say it's humbling because I know what the economy is like at the moment. And for someone to literally pull out even $1 to advance it towards the Liberty bus is, I don't take you for granted. So thank you very much. Alma Peterson, thank you very much for the $5 support. Juanita, baie dankie vir die ondersteuning. En ek dink die laaste naam op my list is Greg Clark, at $10 per month. Thank you so much, guys. You are, hey man, you guys are, you're the bomb diggity, as I like to say. But yeah, guys, thank you so much. I really do appreciate this. Remember, you can also become a Patreon subscriber by literally going to just click the link in the descriptor and follow the prompts to see how you can do that. Guys, I know some of you are saying you don't really understand the Patreon thing. I'll try and introduce other ways in which you can donate, which are perhaps more simpler. Or user-friendly. I don't know if Patreon is that difficult, but nonetheless, I will introduce other ways, including some of you in the community who said, hey man, open up a crypto account of some sort and we'll donate some Bitcoin and stuff. That's also coming. I've got some friends who are helping me set that up. So guys, thank you so much. I just had to shout you all out whilst I had the opportunity. All right, guys, let's have a chat. I'm handing it over to you. I can just get back to my window. Sorry. But yeah, and also, by the way, to those who donate via the super chat here on YouTube, thank you so much, guys. I shout you out. I can see you. Let me just scroll up. I have missed quite a few, but I just want to say thank you. Armand Krenau. Krenau. Dankie for the understanding. Ek sien jou. Dankie. En ek moet sê dankie na Geraldine Hanna. Dankie for the understanding on the super chats. Guys, thank you so much. Okay. I'm done waffling. Let me go straight into the comments. Guys, if I have missed any questions, just repeat them and highlight. I know some of you are able to highlight so I can see them easily. Otherwise, they're kind of hard to keep a track of. All right, here we go. I see you, Joe Emilio. Shout out to you. Actually, just quickly on the issue of Joe, I want you guys to actually go to Joe's page. Joe is fighting, he's waging a battle right now with the very sort of people that I've always argued that are very toxic in our society. These trendy lefty types, the cancel culture people, the ones who say, oh, you said something which I don't like. Now I'm going to go after your sponsors. I'm going to go after your employers and basically have you fired. Those people are absolutely toxic for two reasons. Number one, they don't actually believe in the sort of values that create a free society where freedom of speech is one of those tenets. It's absolutely critically important. And number two, for you to literally feel that you would rather maliciously go after someone's income and prevent that person from being able to put bread on their table, bread that literally supports their family, says a lot about you and your personality. And I think this person's name is Nikki, if I'm not mistaken. Joe will correct me in the comments, but it's absolutely shameful what this girl has done and tried to do basically to Joe and other comedians. People who right now, as we speak, in terms of entertainers, there's not much in the way of income coming in for them anyway. So for her to take bread off of this man's table is absolutely reprehensible. And I've told you before, I'm getting angry, let me calm down. But I've told you before, I take it personally. When there are people who literally target South African families. I take it personally when people make it their mission to harm fathers, mothers in the household who are providing for their families, whether that is a politician or a private individual like this lady, Nikki. I take it personally, and I take strong exception to that. So Joe, homie, I've got your back. I support you, homie. And I will share these videos once I actually get to them. And I'm sorry I haven't shared your stuff sooner than that. But we cannot be a society that if you just disagree with someone, just disagreement, you start targeting people's ability to put bread on the table. What kind of a monster are you to do something like that? Even someone who I disagree with, even someone who I actually even hold some loathing for, I will never do something like that to them. Never. Worse yet, to then revel in having denied that person an ability to look after their family. No, guys, no. That can't be right. You cannot stand for faith flag, family and freedom and be the sort of person who takes joy in seeing a family starving, all because your feelings were hurt. Ooh, my feelings. No, I'm sorry. That cannot be. That cannot be. Anyway, now that I got that off my chest, and I see some other guys there. JC McFarlane saying they're now trying to cancel Dr. Karen Morrow. I mean, it's stuff like that which okay. G Falcon question: did you see Carney Must Fall? Who's Carney? I did tag you in it. Sorry, man, I missed that. I don't even know who Kani is. Is that like an Indian person? Kani. Okay, I'll watch your other comments on here, Holmes. Okay, here we go. I do sometimes see these comments that says this comment is held for review. When I do see them, I try and say show. I don't know why YouTube does that. Like, even if you're asking me a just crazy question, guys, free speech. If I see it, I'll click the show button. Big Daddy, this is a question from I'm not sorry for what my ancestors did. Good. Big Daddy, do you think a white genocide in South Africa is a possibility? No. Not as long as we have our guns. And this is why gun ownership is super important. And I'm a big advocate for gun ownership. It's to prevent exactly things like these, of a society degenerating into one where the state can enact violence on people either based on race or whatever the case may be. And I would argue to you that you must defend, in fact, I've always said gun ownership in this country must become a right, not a privilege, as is often it's often posited in this country. But as to whether there is a white genocide, and also no, not necessarily. And I'll be very cautious of people using that sort of inflammatory rhetoric, because it then takes away from the real issues that are faced in this country, especially by the white community and other minorities, other more insidious issues, such as, for example, the denial of a lot of people from opportunity purely based on race. I mean, why are we punishing white South Africans? Why are we punishing colored or Indian South Africans with policies like affirmative action and BEE? Like, what is a young person who was born after, for instance, just as an argument's sake, because I can extend it to even someone who was born before 94, but just for the argument's sake, let me make this argument this way. What does someone who was born after 1994 have anything to do with the systematic oppression that people experienced under apartheid and under colonial years? Why am I punishing the now to try and rectify the past? It doesn't work that way. What you ought to do is put in place policies in a society that expand opportunity for everybody. And the only way you can do that, if you're going to go the empowerment route, is the best form of economic empowerment is not racially based economic empowerment, but actually a solid education, a quality healthcare system in the country so that people can actually enjoy their quality of life and be healthy, and of course safety and security. The idea that we can live in safe communities and raise children to be able to pursue their own interests in a safe environment. Let me repeat that. 3, enabling opportunities. We call them enabling opportunities in economics. A quality education, regardless of your race. The idea that a child that goes to Tofimvaba High School and the child that goes to Bishops are both receiving a high quality of education that makes them competitive internationally amongst peers. Number 2, a quality healthcare system. And number 3, safety and security. These are 3 areas that the ANC government has critically failed South Africans. And then what they do because of that failure is to go for shortcut nonsense, which is racial-based empowerment, such as affirmative action and BEE. 2 things, by the way, which are incredibly condescending, even to black folk. Because I can never really know in real terms whether I get this opportunity because I'm black or whether I got this opportunity because I'm the best. Food for thought. And again, this is something we'll probably have other shows about in the future. All right, here we go. Estria Struvig, jammer. Hi, BD, do you think it is time for the consensus about nonsense? I'm going to reread that. Do you think it is time for the consensus about nonsense must stop, and that we all need to start looking at the future problems and obstacles? Okay, I'm going to extrapolate what you mean from that and say, yeah, look, I do think it's time that we rally around a vision of where we're going as opposed to what happened in the past, because our politicians revel in the past. They enjoy the past, because if you can keep bringing up the past, then it stokes up emotions which aren't really representative of the reality now. For instance, I can go into a black community and talk all of that nonsense and say, yeah, remember what, apartheid did and blah, 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 blah. But am I talking to the reality of those people in their here and now? No, I'm not. And I think a lot of people are waking up to that the constant driving of the past by various political voices is a distraction. And what I'm putting to you is that it's part of the battle of ideas and part of what I'm looking to do in communities. Go out into communities and present a vision of what could be, for South Africa so that people can rally behind that based on the ideas. Not a personality. I'm not a prophet. I'm not I'm not here to lead us out of the desert like Moshe. No, what I am here to do is to literally say, guys, here are the ideas. If anything, if I can draw one comparison to Moshe, I'm going to give you the ideas, the 10 commandments, if you will. And literally have you say, guys, based on our values of faith, flag, family, and freedom, let us rally around the ideas that preserve and empower and push us forward, the ideas of liberty in particular, building a free society, something we've never been in South Africa. Whether you go back to our colonial days or apartheid or even today, we've never been a free society. We've always been a society where those who are in power pick winners and losers in society based on one race or the other. And I'm saying that's even the current status quo. So we've got to move towards something much better. Let's see here. I see you, Joe. I see you, Dog. Let's see. Sorry, guys. I'm a little behind in the what you call it, questions and stuff. So bear with me. I will get to your stuff. Sorry, there's a lot of people's comments who are being withheld here. I don't know why YouTube does this. It's actually a bit annoying, to be honest. Okay, Kerry, I see you. And just as I mentioned, Kerry, and I'm remembering from a previous chat, Kerry is one of my star fans, if I can even call it that. Wow, I have fans. Okay. Bit weird to even say that, but nonetheless, and I saw your comment, I think it was last week or I forget, that you just recently been that you've just recently been retrenched. Guys, I don't think you understand how heartbreaking that is to me. I don't think you understand how heartbreaking that is to me, because it has nothing to do with COVID-19. And I need you to pay attention to this for a moment. The economy is not slumping and sinking, and people are not losing their jobs because of COVID-19. It's 100% because of government action. And you'll remember a previous vlog I did where I argued that poverty in this country and the increasing rate of poverty in this country is 100% due to government action, not COVID-19. It is the lockdown that is impoverishing South Africans. It is the lockdown that is taking food off the tables of South Africans. It is the lockdown that is seeing South Africans lose their jobs. Excuse me. It is the lockdown that is seeing South Africans lose their jobs. And don't fall for the politicians trying to reassert. Remember, their rhetoric right now is to say, oh, COVID, COVID, COVID. It's not COVID, it's them. It's them. And we've got to share that with fellow citizens and say, if you remove a lot of the bad government decisions, if you remove a lot of the bad political decisions in this country, South Africa actually, you'd start removing the noose around the neck of the South African economy, and it can actually start to, really, get up and grow again. But for us to accelerate that growth, we need the ideas. For South Africans to be the ones who push the ideas that get us into growth. And again, the battle of ideas is critically important in that context. So again, just to tie it back, I feel for people like Kerry and the millions of other South Africans who are getting those unfortunate letters that notify you of a retrenchment. I can't begin to empathize with the pain of then having to think about what this means for your family. Again, this is why it makes me incredibly emotional, incredibly angry. Politicians are aiming their hatred, they're aiming their bad policies, they're aiming their idiocy, if I can call it that, at ordinary South Africans. It is ordinary South Africans who are paying a heavy price for the stupidity in our politics. And it breaks my heart. And this is why I said in that previous vlog, the one that went a little bit viral now is super angry, there has to be consequences and repercussions for politicians who harm South African families. That is what my ground war, my mission is about. Building a society where there are consequences and repercussions for people who so harm the families in this country. And it's not going to be pretty, I can tell you that. And I'm not going to be popular amongst the political elites in this country, I can tell you that. Anyway, Z, I see you. Where do you think the tobacco ban where do you think the tobacco ban court case verdict is hiding? I don't know, dude. Like, it's actually a little disconcerting that it's taking this long for something which was heard on an urgent basis in court to be this delayed in terms of the outcomes. So it could be one of two things. It could be the judge literally is going through, because judgments are usually very long essays. You've got to read them. And they go through the entire nitty-pickiness of all the arguments that were put before them. So it could be that that's the case, right? That the judge is taking their time to make the judgment rock solid, if I can call it that. Or it just could be something's happening in the background that we're just not aware of. I wouldn't want to impugn and suggest that without evidence. So I will go with the safe assumption of saying I've got a feeling that the judgment is going to be incredibly thorough. And there's going to be the case examples brought from like 19 Futsak, so to speak, to substantiate why a judgment went in a particular direction. And I've got a feeling the tobacco companies are going to win it. That's my feeling. I'm not a legal expert. Lucanyo, hey dog, shout out to you. How do you feel about Leon Schuster being cancelled? It's actually disgusting. It's actually disgusting. Leon Schuster is one character in this country who, in the darkest days of apartheid, forced us to laugh at each other, forced us to laugh at the stupidity of that system, forced us to laugh at our insecurities about each other by reminding us that we're people, goddammit. We're people. And that and that this whole thing, this whole corrupt system at that time that was operating, that was dividing South Africans based on race, was a figment of a political elite's imagination. He showed white South Africans, for example, that you can actually relax. You can let your guard down. No one's coming to take, and again, I say this with the pinch of salt because the politicians then proved me wrong. But in terms of ordinary people on a day-to-day basis, on an everyday basis, he showed white South Africans that black South Africans don't hate them. Equally, he showed black South Africans that white South Africans are not the politics of the time. And that's the guy who we're going to cancel because a few of these lefty douchebags and these trendy lefties and these race merchants are basically calling his stuff blackface, blah, 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 blah. And how dare Leon Schuster put on black face and makeup that made him look like an Indian or a black South African. Oh, I'm sorry, is that the real issue here? Then why don't we say the same thing about Dave Chappelle and his show, the Dave Chappelle Show, where he used to play a white news anchor and put on white makeup? Why don't we say anything about that? Oh, I'm sorry, is it only a one-way street? Hey man, I'm sorry, the double standards by these social justice types are appalling. And again, I don't pick on Dave Chappelle because I'm arguing there was something wrong with him putting on white makeup. I'm making the exact other point, which is comedy is comedy. Like, you've got to risk being offensive to be funny. You've got to risk being offensive to get an idea across. You've got to risk being offensive to make someone feel uncomfortable in order to exercise your freedom of free speech. And that's what these people are opposed to. It has nothing to do with Leon Schuster and whether he was racist or not, because we deep down inside, South Africans know Leon Schuster is not racist. But because of these blavity black types, as I like to call them, and the social justice warrior whites, the self-flagellating whites, oh, woe is us, what we did in the past. Like, I don't care about that. I don't care about that. I care about who you are in the now. I care about the content of your character now. And based on that, no one can stand here and say Leon Schuster is a racist. And equally, even if you go back into the record of history, no one can say the man is a racist. But again, we've weaponized this term racist and we've politicized it so that it actually loses meaning and it can be whatever you want it to be for whatever political expediency you're trying to go after in a moment. It's absolute trash. It's absolute trash. Let's see here. OD, I'll sponsor BDL Sound when he's in Cape Town, homie. Shout out to you. I see you. Thanks for the love. Pop me a mail, man. Pop me a mail. By the way, there's some really exciting stuff that I'll be doing once I'm on the road. I'm looking to produce, just as a quick reminder, a 3-part mini-series on life, liberty, and property rights. To demonstrate how these 3 areas of our quality of life are being impacted by politicians and leftist ideas in this country. So look forward to that. And part of that is to do, for example, to tell South African stories through the lens of a South African. To actually tell South African stories. One of the stories I want to tell is life on rural, in rural parts of South Africa, which includes issues like farm murders. Like, why are we not making a massive noise about this? Why are we leaving those who live in rural parts of South Africa to basically fend for themselves? Remember, I said to you, you cannot have a functional and prosperous society if you don't look at and address things like a good education, good healthcare, and safety and security. So why are we leaving safety and security for those who live in rural areas in such an appalling state where people are being attacked, people are being murdered, and the nature of those murders? Guys, you must see some of the stuff. You must see some of the stuff. And do you mean to tell me there's no agenda when it comes to this kind of thing? Someone has to tell these stories. So I'm definitely going to be looking to putting together a documentary on this particular issue with the view of pushing it out into the world and saying, guys, look at what's happening to my beloved farmers. People who make sure that when I get home, I can put a meal on the table, but we don't even have the common decency as a society to protect that individual. Hey, bo. Few things make me more angry than that, if I'm to be brutally honest, if I can just share for a moment. Because I know what it is to live a rural life. We've got rural plots as the Ngobese family, and I know what it means to be someone who lives in that part of the world and to literally feel alone. That's why I'm a big gun advocate. But again, separate issues. We'll cover these issues in another day. Sorry, guys, I'm falling behind here. I'm seeing these questions are coming in. They can fast. All right, here we go. Lungile, hey man, good to see you. Yikes. Okay, sorry, I'm just trying to find a question. Kerry, the sins of the fathers are meted out on the sons. How long must this go on? Again, you're right. It's absolutely appalling. Because imagine if someone held me to the standard in which Blavity blacks hold whites in this country. Imagine someone came to me and said, no, but Big Daddy is Zulu. And look at what Zulus did to the Ndebeles and various other tribal groupings. In fact, look at what the Zulus did to the various indigenous people of this country, Khoi, San, Nama, well, mostly Khoi and San in real terms, because they used to populate that part of the world which Zulus expanded and pushed them out of. Imagine if those people came and said, yeah, but no, hang on, don't be so loud in saying you want this, you want that, you want reparations, you want land. What about us? And to be honest, based on the argument, I wouldn't oppose that. Because they would be using an argument which the Blavity black types use themselves. Imagine that, holding me for account of what my forebearers, my ancestors, if I can use that, did. And me being held to that. No, man. Anyway, let me move on. Chico Munoz. BDL makes me want to join the I'm Staying group. Not convinced yet, but if you run for president, I'll consider it. No, man, I don't have to run for president. But let me quickly talk about this I'm staying and I'm leaving thing. First things first. If you've done the calculation for your family and for yourself that you want to leave, homie, I mean this with sincerity. I'm in full support of you. Because at the end of the day, and I keep saying this, you are responsible for yourself and you are responsible for your family, first and foremost. And if the calculation you've made is that you'd be better off living somewhere else, or alternatively, you'd be better off in having a plan B that can help see you leave if things don't go the way that you want them to go in terms of building a free, prosperous, and property-owning society and non-racial society, then I'm not going to blame you. Guys, individuals and families come first. Individuals and families come first. Like, I don't know how much I can stress this. Your life matters. Your family's lives matter. And I don't want people to feel as though there is some sort of great betrayal for them just even having a plan B of some sort. But with that being said, there is a great imperative for us to fight for the country, because I'm of the strong view that we are actually in the majority in real terms. The politicians in this country are not the majority. What they've done is to create a false illusion of a projecting of being the majority based on the terrible ideas and based on the dependency they create amongst the population in this country. But the moment you burst that illusion and then you start rallying South Africans behind the ideas first, not a political party, not a brand, the ideas first. You get the foundation right. Oh my goodness. Then you change the society. Then you make it incredibly difficult for any politician who seeks to impose bad ideas to ever get an inkling of power in South Africa. That's what you want. You want to make it so that even the bad politician is incentivized to do the right thing. As I said in the beginning. And guys, it's not easy. Yes, I talk about it in nice, concise, soundbite terms, but in reality, the ground war that I'm talking about, it's not going to be easy. I'm not going to be traveling around thinking, yeah, everywhere I go, I'll be like Moshe. There'll be people behind me, and I'll have a whole line of black and white South Africans. But like, come on, everybody, let's go march to the local union buildings. And like, it's not going to happen that way. I'm not going to have a trail of people behind me necessarily. No, it's not going to happen that way. It's going to be very difficult. It's going to be very tough. There are some communities that I might even go into where I might be met with resistance by particular vested interest groups who see the danger of me red-pilling people. Guys, there are real-world dangers to what I'm looking to do. And this is why I'm doing the legwork of saying, support me, help me to build not only the funds, which will help me not only get around, but even in some cases, if needs be, to hire a little bit of security. Again, there are real-world considerations to what I'm doing. None of this is easy. And none of this is going to be a short overnight thing. It's hard work, guys. The groundwork is hard work. That's why a lot of these political entities don't do the hard work and the ground war. But someone's got to do it. And this is where I've put my hand up and I've said, Yebo, choose me, Baba. Tuma mina, as the president misappropriated. But seriously, this is what I'm devoting my life to. And I'm of the strong opinion that if I do this correctly, and I do so with careful instruction and the patience required, you can actually then start to see in real terms a broad coalition of South Africans develop who then say, we get it. We get it. Someone took the time to do the legwork, and now we get it. Now we are open, as, for example, the 12 million who are eligible to vote but don't vote. We're open to looking for the sort of politician who advances our ideas. Hard work will go into this. But the nice thing is I'm building a coalition of South Africans who share my ideas, who will be with me on this journey, in various legs here and there, some hopping on and off the Liberty bus, so to speak. So that I might rock up in your neighborhood of Pofadder, and we might do a talk in that part of the world, and you might see me with someone like Mpiake Gamin. I'm just saying, I haven't really spoken to him, but to say, hey man, would you be willing? But I know he's the kind of guy who'd be like, yeah, dude, let's do it. Let's go to this community, let's convince people. I might be in an area with someone else. Advancing these ideas. I know that I'm not alone in this. But it's just about someone doing the legwork, the groundwork. All right, sorry guys, let me get into the questions. Let me see. Joe Emilio, when will I be on Chris White's channel? I am in conversation with Chris. Guys, quick reminder, I literally had in excess of 1,700 emails and inboxes, and I was going through them with meticulous, there's about 800 now left. So it's quite, I mean, there are some people in that basket of emails who I have missed. But Chris is someone I eventually got to. I'm in communication with him, and we're probably going to do a show this week sometime. So I know Chris is on the radar this week. Speaking about this week, maybe I'll get to the end about this, because this week he's going to have a particular focus for the show. I'm on a warpath this week, and there might be a few politicians who hear from me in not so nice terms physically. I might rock up to their doorstep and do to them what they're doing to poor people, but I'll share that with you at the end of the show. Very interesting content coming your way this week. All right, here we go. I see questions about how we can stop BEE. I'll get into that in other episodes. All right, here we go. Let's see here. Sorry, guys, give me a second. It's very small text. Let's see if I can make this bigger. It might help. Pop out chat. Nope, still very small. Okay, oh well. All right, let's see if there's a question. Stanley Jacobs, hi PDL. What are your thoughts on Black Lives Matter and the socialist connection? Well, that's exactly, I think you've preempted what my thoughts are on that. Guys, there's a very, and I had this debate or discussion on Twitter. There's two separate things happening here. If someone says to you, do you think Black Lives Matter? The short answer is yes, absolutely. Like any life that is created on this planet by Hashem, all lives matter, and equally so. And we need to defend that principle, right? And indeed fight for that principle of saying all lives, including unborn lives, by the way, which is where a lot of these lefties sometimes lose me, because suddenly abortion is fine. But fine, that's a separate issue. Well, actually, it's not, but anyway. But the principle, all lives matter. If a life is created by Hashem, absolutely it matters. It must be defended, and it's our role to fight for that individual to enjoy a quality of life in a free, prosperous, non-racial, and property-earning society, period. When then someone says to me, but do you support Black Lives Matter? No, I don't. I do not support Black Lives Matter for two discernible reasons. Number one, this is a radical Marxist organization, and no person here can literally argue that you can say Black Lives Matter and then advocate for the very sort of ideas which are an antithesis to that. Socialism and Marxism have destroyed black lives, have destroyed lives, period. If you're telling me about a system, a socialist and communist system, which has a body count of 100 million people that have been murdered by various socialist and communist regimes, what the hell are you trying to sell me what the hell are you trying to sell me a Black Lives Matter movement which is Marxist for? Why would I support something like that? And by the way, Black Lives Matter, the organization, openly states that they are radical Marxist-trained individuals. Look at the leadership of BLM. Let me take you one step further. Look at who Black Lives Matter funds. All these donations that go to Black Lives Matter, I can assure you, those are not necessarily going to black lives, nor even black communities. If you look at who Black Lives Matter is supporting and where they're sending their donor funds to, it's to the Democrat Party in the US. The very same Democrat Party, by the way, where a lot of these shootings, these police shootings and police brutality was happening in their cities, Democrat run, and have been so for more than 60 years. The same Democrat cities where black Americans in particular have endured an inferior quality of life, becoming dependents of a welfare society under Democrat policy, living in terrible housing, not having the sort of employment and jobs that free them from dependency on the state, being welfare recipients. Democrat policies. And yes, Republicans do bear some responsibility, but by and large, you cannot tell me that in Black Lives Matter, the organization is advocating for something new, something different, something which actually advances the cause of black Americans. And notice how I say black Americans, because I don't call them African Americans, because there's nothing African about them. And it's kind of weird to sort of suggest that they're African in some nature. Yeah, they have black skin, but really, these are Americans. By identity, they're Americans. Point being, I then cannot support an organization like that because the ideas they're advancing are toxic. And we as Africans in particular know what the effects of communism and Marxism have done. Because most of these post-independence states in Africa went down the line of socialist and communist ideology. And where are they now? Where are they now? So I'm sorry, no, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. It's either you actually really stand for Black lives and you're trying to advance an agenda which frees Black Americans from state dependency, which creates a society of wealthier, middle-class Blacks who enjoy a higher quality of life through a solid education, safety and security, which means you don't do things like defund the police. What an asinine idea. Anyway, you don't do things like fight against the right of every American, Black and white, to be able to own and bear arms. It's a constitutional right. You don't infringe on the freedom of speech of Americans, which is what these are what the Black Lives Matter types are doing. They're actually arguing for a society which creates winners and losers, and most of the people they're advocating for, i.e. Blacks, would lose invariably, given the ideas that they punt. So no, Black Lives Matter, the organization, is absolute trash. Should not be supported in real terms. But as to the underlying grievances that are being faced by some communities in America, absolutely, those you can support. But I'm not going to do it through the guise and the prism of the Antifa types and the Black Lives Matter types, who are radical Marxists. They can go get fudged, for all I care. I'm missing questions here. Sorry, guys. Let me see here. Okay, I also need to keep an eye on time because I did say this won't go too long. WW, how is BLM Marxist, man? The movement just said that black lives also matter and their life should be treated. No, dude, no. And I'm not surprised that you are an anonymous account, because it's often the anonymous accounts that say silly things like this, because you don't have to literally have the gumption to show yourself, to stand by a silly comment like that and even a silly question like that. Do your research, man. Don't just spew the talking points of these organizations. It's ridiculous that people do this. And I'm a little mean because there's a lot of this on social media. There are people who are literally making it their mission to spread false information, to spread false narratives. Anyway, let's see here. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up in 5 minutes. I did say this was going to be a short episode, so let me try and get as many questions as I possibly can. Sorry, I'm just going down the line here. Anyone have his email? Guys, my email address is bdl@bigdaddylibertyshow.com. All right, Jill Ashkettle. Do you know the Chinese are now in charge of the Human Rights Commission at the United Nations now? What is your view on this? Well, it rotates, I think. But again, the United Nations, trash. Absolute trash. Absolute trash. I do not take the United Nations seriously generally. And I say this as you're making part of the point, which is it appoints sometimes countries with a very dubious human rights record to head up human rights institutions. It'll say nothing about, for example, how some of these Islamic nations, as an example, treat gay people, but it'll put those organizations at the helm of human rights organizations chapters within the UN. What? Really? They will berate Israel, for example, for a litany of things, or anything and everything, but say nothing about Saudi Arabia, which literally has a human rights record which is in the toilets. So again, it's those inconsistencies which I'm just like, UN, trash. Absolute trash. Sorry, guys, I can't go into detail on a lot of these. I'm just going to sort of like, Bernard, hey BDL, what's your take on the looming taxi strike? Look, I don't blame these guys, right? You've also got to separate issues a little bit. This is a Santaco strike, which is the mother body, if I can call it, of the taxi industry. One can sometimes get the impression that they represent everybody. They kind of don't. I mean, they're a unifying voice, but at the same time, take it with a pinch of salt. Because the taxi industry is very decentralized, guys. And, you know, there's a multitude of voices in there. But generally speaking, I sort of get it, but at the same time, I'm not in a full agreement. Their biggest gripe is you basically shut down the economy, dear politicians. You're locked down. Not COVID. You see, they're very smart also. That's why I appreciate the taxi industry. The taxi industry recognized that it was government decisions that prevented them from trading. It was government decisions that prevented them from being able to earn an income. And now they're basically arguing, that the state must compensate them to a value of at least, they're basically arguing 20 grand per taxi, which, and if you've watched my mini-series here on my YouTube channel, just look for the Taxiland mini-series, a 3-part mini-series where I took you into the world of the taxi industry. You'll realize that these guys are savvy businessmen, and often they don't look to the state for any handouts. But I can see why they're making the argument that because the state crippled them during this lockdown, it is that same state that must now compensate them. So I think that's basically the argument they're making. Because in reality, the states basically asked these guys not to operate for a month and some change in real terms. Now, each of the taxis that you often see on the road, especially the quantum ones, the installment for that taxi is about 16,000 Rand per month. And that's not including the insurance costs, which are super high, given the fact that they have vehicles that are on the road all the time. So I can reasonably foresee why someone in the taxi industry might say, look, you shut us down, and you're currently continuing to impose regulations on us, which prevent us from even catching up. For example, you know, a taxi can't fill up to full capacity. It can only take 70% max capacity. So I can understand why those same people would say if you're going to legislate and regulate all these asinine decisions, then compensate us. So again, I can see the argument from both directions. But yeah, I mean, I'm very friendly towards the taxi industry because these guys are entrepreneurs in the real sense of the word. They don't actually want often state money or state assistance. They just want the freedom to trade. And I've always argued that what we could do and what we should focus on when it comes to the taxi industry is to modernize the industry and to bring it within ever increasingly the rule of law. Because if they've got the economics right, they've got the fundamentals right, they've got the business model right, but it's now just bringing them to modernize them, which is the big mission. And government sucks at this. It fumbles in the dark when it comes to how it deals with the taxi industry. Let's see here. Sipongizo. I have to disagree with you. Black Lives Matter as a movement has never associated itself with, again, people say this and they don't do the research. I mean, like, what do you expect me to say? Like, because you're basically saying, oh, you disagree, they've never associated itself with any type of ideology. You're wrong. You're actually wrong. Like, it's blatantly wrong. Like, I don't even need to go into, in real terms, detail here, because all you need to do is listen to what they say. What they actually say. Don't take it from me. Do a little bit of research. I'm just trying to remember his name. His name evades me now. He did a video recently. And again, it's not like this is all secret. It's not like, you have to dig real deep. I mean, in the interviews they do, the founders of BLM openly state, we are trained as radical black Marxists. And this is our agenda. So when people say stuff like this, I'm like, all right. Anyway, let's see. Sorry, guys, the text is really small, so it takes me a bit to readjust to the screen. Spekerond say, why when Cyril climbs out of the woodwork, his sidekick Begicele gets a high job too every time. Are they not involved in the Natal Mafia? I have no idea what that means. Sorry, Spekerond, I have no idea what that means. Maybe you can post another comment and just explain. Shaib Khen something Migung. Sorry, long name, looks German. BLM isn't that bad. Of course, you'd say that. But if you had a business and it was trashed by a riotous looting mob, I'm not sure you'd be saying something like that. If you had a relative who was killed by the mob, I'm not sure you'd be saying something like that. If you were someone who had to collect medicine in your local pharmacy but realized that all the shops in your area and the pharmacies are trashed, I'm not sure you'd be saying stuff like that. It's very nice and it's very easy to talk from a distance, but it's a different reality when you are the affected party when it comes to what these organizations are doing. Again, people like to speak from privilege, and they don't want to put themselves in an empathetic, to be empathetic, that's the word, empathetic towards those who actually are affected by this. The very fact that you had black-owned businesses having to put up signs that say, this is a black-owned business, don't loot, don't trash this. It was almost like Kristallnacht, if I can use a German reference, since your name looks German, where businesses had to put up signs to say, this is either Jewish or that's not Jewish, just to prevent the mob from destroying what the people have worked hard to build up. So I'm sorry, I hold no quarter to people who say silly things like that, just because they are in a nice privileged position where they don't have to experience the mob. No, guys, don't do that. Don't do that. N-Team Tembo, what are your thoughts on Put South Africans First? Yeah, man, I've seen this on social media, this hashtag Put South Africans First. Look, it's a little problematic for me because of where I think it comes from. I think it sometimes it's a xenophobic stance, which is being masked as being a patriotic stance at times. So it sort of straddles the line a little bit. So it's one of the reasons why I've put out a request to Herman, excuse me, I need to say Herman, to Herman Mashaba for him to come onto the show. Hopefully I can have Herman maybe next week Sunday on late nights here, and I can actually ask him what he means by this, and also interrogate Herman Mashaba generally on what his vision for the country is. Because for as much as Herman Mashaba is the kind of person who ideologically I would agree with on a lot of things, I have my reservations on some of what I've seen from Herman Mashaba. For example, when he was mayor, why was he so deferential towards the EFF? Why didn't he hold the line when it comes to some of these issues? Because if you look at the EFF, they would not necessarily argue a point like put South Africans first. I mean, Malema's been, for example, someone who advocates for open borders and no borders in Africa. So it's those internal contradictions that we need to sort of... that we need to, interrogate politicians. So if anybody who's in the, what is it called? The People's Dialogue is watching this, hey man, ask Herman to come onto the show. I'm definitely going to give him another reminder for an invite, and hopefully we'll have him on next week, Sunday. Guys, I must wrap up. It's 6 minutes past 10, so maybe just 3 more questions. And I'll call it an evening. Sorry, guys. These are very tough to sort of follow. As I said, the text is really small. Chico Munez, what's your view on patriotism versus faith? If they aren't compatible, which do you choose? Faith. Often, it's a little bit of a misnomer to say that they're not compatible, because you literally live in a country which is 97% Christian. So you can't be said that it's incompatible per se. And all of those individuals, by and large, are incredibly patriotic. People love their country. We may hate our government and have sharp disagreements with what our political elites do in this country, but generally speaking, people love this country. And I've always argued that South Africa isn't a natural country. It's basically a whole bunch of regions put together. And whatever the new South Africa, whatever shape it takes the form of, was that a proper sentence? Yes. it has to recognize that those two realities. Number one, deeply religious nation. I'm in a religious minority, but I'm also catered for in this country. Muslims are also Jews, which is where I am, and Muslims are religious minorities, but we're catered for in this country quite amply. But with that being said, it's the values that bind us, often that I argue transcend any differences on other issues. I'm seeing a lot of bugger offs on here. I'm not sure what's going on. All right, guys, let me wrap it up. Maybe just the last question. Vosi Simbela, thoughts on the FF Plus? Yeah, dude, I don't know, hey? Generally speaking, I'm in favor of any organization that is at least ideologically consistent, number one, and number two, fights for principles that lean on the side of freedom. I do have slight reservations about them, but it's reservations that I'd rather hash out in a conversation with them as opposed to me making assumptions of them or going by what the media says about them, because those are two areas which are proven in this country to be unreliable. So I'll tell you what, I'll send out an all call to the Freedom Front Plus and see if I can get anybody to come onto the show, have a chat with them. I'll pick and interrogate them to the best of my ability, especially as I hold up my values to them and see what they say, right? I'll put my values of faith, flag, family, and freedom to them and see where, how close or how far they fall from those. I'll put my ideas of liberty to them, see how far or how close they are to those. How about that, hey? I think that'll be a nice show. So I'll put out an all call to the Freedom Front Plus and have them on the show, including the DA. I'll see if I can get John on the show and we can have this conversation, because there's a few issues that DAs are running away from that I've noticed online, including Cape secession, for example. So I'm going to put a little pressure on Dad and see what the homie says about that. Guys, I must say good night. I'm really sorry if I didn't get to any of the other questions. But yeah, remember, you can reach me on email. Just go to BDL, or rather send an email to BDL@BigDaddyLibertyShow.com. Remember, I said halfway through the show that this week I'm going to devote the show and all the vlogs that I do almost to a singular topic, which is the attack by politicians on mostly poor, black, mostly informal traders and street entrepreneurs in this country. I mean, there's a chap at Sandwich King who sent a tweet out on Friday, it must have been, or Saturday, Saturday, yesterday, basically saying, my stock has been confiscated again by these crooked JMPD police officers. Guys, this government is all out attacking people who are productive. It's all out attacking people who are breadwinners in this country, and that has to stop. So this week, I'm devoting my show towards that fight. And I'm going to take that fight to JMPD. I'm going to take that fight to the city of Johannesburg. And who knows, I might even take that fight to the union building itself in a bit of advocacy work and saying, stop the war on entrepreneurs in this country, both black and white. Give entrepreneurs the freedom to trade, give entrepreneurs the freedom to create the jobs, create the wealth, so that people can have an income, from that income build savings, from those savings buy a better quality of life. It is absolutely ridiculous in this country that we're punishing people who are literally the productive people, and that's what the politicians want. That's what the politicians want. And I'm saying I'm going to be drawing a very firm line this week. And there's going to be a few politicians who hear from me and might be ambushed by me with the cameras and might not like it. So watch out for that kind of stuff. It's going to happen this week. Guys, thank you so much for watching. And I will see you guys on Wednesday for either a Blacks Only episode. For those who are wondering what Blacks Only is, you'll see. It's actually a nice, cheeky little show. Or a Big Daddy Liberty show. I'm not sure which it is, because they should be alternating now every week. So I'll see you on Wednesday, maybe some vlogs before that. And yeah, guys, I really appreciate you being here. Thank you for the questions. If I didn't get to your questions, I'm really sorry about that. You can pop me an email. And remember, you can support the show by becoming a Patreon subscriber. Please know that I will be developing other ways in which you can donate. I know some of you say it's hard to be on Patreon. I understand. I will put out some information on other ways in which you can support the show. So guys, on that note, thank you so much for supporting the show. And with that being said, best of evenings to you. And remember, as I always say at the end of a show, never trust a commie.